Hello and welcome to this extremely insightful and interesting discussion around identity security. My name is Mukbil Ahmed. I'm the executive editor at ETCISO and the host for this session. Today I'm joined by Mark McClain, founder and CEO of SailPoint. Mark, welcome to the show. The first question, you are a veteran of the field. Mark, what do you think is the significance of identity security today?
Well, thank you, Mukbil, for having me on your show. It's an honor to be with you. Identity security is a rapidly evolving phase of the security landscape. We have seen a lot of change from mostly a focus on operational efficiency, sometimes called provisioning or lifecycle management, to compliance and governance, audit checks on who has access. But now the focus is really on, can executives feel confident that their enterprise is secure through the lens of identity? Can they be sure that they have the right controls over who has access to their critical data? And that has been their focus with identity security now for the last few years. SailPoint is privileged to be one of the leaders in this market.
Right. As you said, this is a very fast evolving field. What do you think are some of the major trends and challenges that you see vis-a-vis something like identity security?
Well, again, what I've seen a lot is companies moving from a focus on either cost savings or perhaps on audit compliance certifications to make sure they are okay with the regulators or even their own internal audit functions. But increasingly, the real big challenge that they're worried about is, are we protecting our data? Because now it's well understood that the identity vector of attack is very common, right? The bad guys, the hackers, have more and more focused not on trying to break into our technology systems, but trying to get to the humans, to get compromised identities, compromised passwords, and then use that to gather information. So the focus on protecting identity and then the access that that identity has is the biggest challenge many companies are wrestling with today. And the challenge is getting harder because all these businesses going through digital transformation are adding new business applications all the time. New SaaS applications, sometimes building applications. Overall, the challenge is getting harder, not easier, because of the number and breadth of identities and the breadth of applications and data.
Right. Yeah, Mark, you have made three very pertinent points. For example, you spoke about the mentality to just ensure that compliances are met. And secondly, on the other hand, we also see the evolution of the technology space. For example, SaaS, PaaS, and all these invariably bring in a lot of security risks. And we see the number of security incidents increasing so much. So what would you advise? How do organizations begin their journey towards identity security?
Well, we do tell them that probably the most important thing initially is to get, I think the phrase works here, a handle, get control over the identities and the data. If you ask a lot of executives, do they really understand every identity that is accessing their systems? The general answer is no, because it used to be true that they mostly focused on employees and who in their organization had access to their systems. Well, as we all know, we've gone from employees to embracing contractors who feel much like an employee, but then we also have business partners and suppliers and distributors, all of whom are now accessing our systems, including now our customers are often accessing systems. So understanding all the identities that matter, that are important to that organization, it really does start there. Do you have a complete picture of all those identities? And then on the other side is, do you have a complete picture of all of your data and applications? And have you kind of rank ordered what's most important? As you know, in like financial services and some industries, regulations drive what's important. They have to manage and report on certain data. But increasingly, CISOs, CIOs are focused on, I care about all of my data, and I need to protect it from threats due to an identity attack. So we always like to say you can't manage what you can't see. So you have to start with visibility of everything you're trying to understand about identity and access to data. Now that I can see it, do I understand those relationships? What is Mukbil's role in our organization? What data should he have? What data should he not see? Do I have confidence that I can protect him from seeing the data he should not see or take action? So I think it's just starting with visibility and then moving to understanding of relationships and controls.
I absolutely agree with you. Visibility into access and data is of paramount importance. Now, coming to my next question, we see that all discourse around cybersecurity, be it identity security, revolves around certain frameworks. And one of the prominent frameworks that we have today is the zero trust architecture and framework. So how would you be able to help organizations ensure that they are aligning with something like a zero trust framework, which is quite popular these days?
It is quite popular, but it's also quite hard to define sometimes, isn't it? Everybody says they believe in it, they don't know exactly what they mean. So I think part of what we're trying to do is help people understand how we think identity is critical to that zero trust approach. Sometimes I use the word approach, because I'm even framework and architecture, I'm like, I can define an architecture with components. Zero trust, not sure we can define all the components yet, right?
It's an approach.
It's an approach, right? And it says, I don't have a strong perimeter defense like I always used to have in IT back 30, 40 years ago with mainframe data centers. I had a very strong perimeter protection. We always like to say firewalls are still important. It's not like you don't protect your perimeter, but everyone believes they're no longer fully sufficient. We need other forms of protection. And so one of the other forms of protection is, do I understand who those identities are? Well, zero trust says every identity should have to prove itself coming into my organization, because again, identities are changing all the time, and they're coming in from different devices, and they're coming in from different networks. I like to say, if your security operations center sees data being downloaded from China about your financial data in the middle of the night, you might say, oh, is that a hacker? But if you know that your CFO is on a business trip in China, you might say, oh no, that's just the CFO doing his job. So sometimes it's not just what is happening, it's the context of who is that? Is this appropriate access or appropriate behavior? So zero trust says my first job is to check, is that really who I think it is? Is their identity compromised in any way? If not, it must be okay.
Right. And I also agree with you in the sense that we currently inhabit a world which is perimeterless. With the proliferation of technology, devices, locations, people are working from anywhere, anytime. So that essentially means that the perimeter, which was there earlier, does not exist. Now, coming to the last question of this session, and we have had a very interesting discussion till now, what role can artificial intelligence AI play in a sound cybersecurity strategy which is aimed at a robust, identity security?
I'm sorry, what is artificial intelligence? No, I'm kidding. I couldn't resist. Everybody talks about it today.
Who
You can't have a conversation without artificial
You can't have a
intelligence, right?
conversation.
I think in the land of security, and even within that, within identity security particularly, I think like many people, we see both the opportunity and the threat of artificial intelligence. On the opportunity side, we can use these emerging technologies, generative AI, large language models, to do much more analysis and pattern matching to understand what kinds of behaviors are normal. Back to my example of my CFO in China. If I know the CFO goes to China once a month and I see that pattern as normal, I won't worry about it. If they've never seen data downloaded from China, my first thought might be that could be a bad guy. Let me double check and find out what's happening. So AI will help us with large understanding of the patterns, the behaviors that are typical or not typical. So I think that's one way we will use AI. This is a very simple example, but surprisingly important in our space. AI can help us define what is an access privilege. It's very common today that people are asked to verify in access for their employees, and they get a report that says, can Mukbul access server 93x29? They don't know what that means. If their data report said, can Mukbul access the corporate financial information, they know, oh, that is part of his job or not part of his job, right? So it's helping customers understand what they're seeing and looking for the patterns that might signify a problem and going after it. That's all on the opportunity side. Of course, on the danger side is all of the bad guys, the hackers, are using these things to make more sophisticated attacks, to make those phishing attempts look more legitimate. So we see both the threat that we are trying to rapidly adapt to, looking for patterns that could be a challenge that we didn't understand before, but also leveraging the technology to help our customers protect themselves and their data.
Right. I think in the context of the evolving threat landscape, AI is a tool, as you rightly pointed out. It has opportunities as well as challenges, and what we are seeing, the current trend is that it's being used far more on the other side than this side. Having said that, it's been a lovely discussion, and we went into the nuances and the nitty-gritties of identity security and how the field itself is evolving as a whole? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities and the trends? Thanks for joining us today, Mark. It's been a lovely, lovely discussion.
Thank you, McBill. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Same here.